Hello, Doug. This is Steve with a post-repair video illustrating your 4-element Fluidmotion controller has been restored to normal service. The photo I showed you earlier was essentially what you see here, but these LEDs were not illuminated. These LEDs, there's 2 of them for each EHU. Actually, there's 4 of them for each EHU. But in this particular mode, which is the holding mode, only 2 illuminate at a time. They illuminate dimly as well because there's only 5 volts DC applied to the EHU windings in order to keep the mechanism locked up. Otherwise, the spring would pull the tape in and compromise the calibration. So holding voltage is what you're seeing now. That voltage remains even when you turn the controller off. In fact, it's off now. So let me turn it back on. And now I'm going to press one of the band buttons. You'll see the remaining pair of LEDs light up on each of the 4 EHUs, and they will shine quite brightly and then come to a halt and then return to the holding voltage. Here we go. And what you're seeing is the pulses that are applied, roughly 24 volts on the outputs. Now, it's most unusual to have all 4 driver ICs defective, and I put the old ones underneath this piece of tape here. Most likely what's happened is your cable was severely crushed or otherwise shorted, taking out all 4 driver ICs. It's vitally important that you figure out what's going on there and either mend the cable, or if it's given the age, you might consider replacing it. You'll need 16 conductor cable, and that is available from Stepper. In order to make the assessment, you're going to want to plug the control cable into J2 without the controller being in place. And then you come with your ohm meter and read across the red and black and white and green connections, which are available right at the screw tops of the screen connector. And you do that for the driven element director, reflector, and director 2. You go across each pair of these connections, and you should read something on the order of 17 to 22 ohms. The precise value is less important than a consistent reading across each pair. And if you find that you have a short circuit or a very low resistance across a pair, you must address that before plugging in the controller. If you fail to do that, you're going to destroy the driver ICs I've just replaced, and that is not a warrantable failure. So, as you can see, all 4 EHUs are putting out good drive signals through each band, and the unit's working again as it's supposed to. But I really strongly caution you, you need to make that assessment of the resistances. Now, if you have the, I believe Stepper calls it the field splice DB25, you can make those resistance checks on the screw terminal of that connector. But if you have the soldered on DB25, then you're going to find it rather challenging to make those resistance checks. And that's one of the many ways that this particular board is useful, in that it allows you to make resistance checks. If you actually want to measure the holding voltage, you can hook up across the pin pairs and read the DC voltage that's being applied. If you want to see if the driver ICs are putting out if you want to measure the actual output voltage, again, you can do so conveniently with the screen terminal strip. It can also be used to bench test a drive motor or even a full EHU, but of course that has its own problems because you don't want a whole bunch of tape coming out of the EHU in an uncontrolled manner. So if you're going to bench test an EHU, you better have yourself ready to capture that tape and maintain control over it, because you can't allow it to bend. So at any rate, everything's working good. Let me know if you want one of these boards. I'll include it with your order. Otherwise, I'm going to return this to you tomorrow, and send me a check when you get it and you're satisfied with the results. Thank you for your business.